Hi, I'm Wendy Stone, your host and reader for Storytime. Tonight we'll be continuing with Dog Upon Atlas into Chapter 6. Thank you for joining me. Jomi lived in a nice, quiet neighborhood in central Brooklyn, with a beautiful cemetery abutting her 2-story adobe, carrying the smell of geomycin. I always liked those scents. Reminded me of home and growing up in the country. I stepped to the door and knocked, noting the patio light was still on. I wondered if they'd done that on purpose, left a light on for Jomi, though it was daytime. Did her housemates know she was gone? I picked up the knocker and drove it harder. It was mid-morning and they were probably out, but I needed a look, an imprint or two from Jomi's room. Scanning left and right, I eased the lockpicks out of my paunch and jimmied the lock open, shutting the panel quietly behind me. "Hello? Anybody home?" A cold echo answered. The place was, as I expected from 4 young dogs living together. Messy large TV center of the room, with a spiderweb of cables on the floor leading to a musty couch. Whole place smelled of youth, stale food, dust, and sweat. Benson said she lived with 3 males. How'd she do it? It hurt to think about her. But I continued upstairs until finding a likely candidate, a room with posters lining the wall, but of males. Musicians, actors, but with an added few that piqued my interest. Some of the posters were of known criminals, dogs that had openly rebelled against the clans. This was not a good omen. It tickled that infinitely small bit of doubt I had that Sophia had been telling the truth, that the dogs I'd chased the previous night were Jomi's gangmates. Nah, I said aloud. Every girl swoons over rebels, right? Yeah, right. The room was nearly empty. No books in the bookshelves, no toys, no personal effects. The closet neat and tidy, the dresser neat and tidy, like the clothes had never been worn. The entirety of the room appeared as if Jomi had recently moved, or never finished moving in. The bed was the only indication of life, except for its contents. Instead of a nice pad and a blanket for the coming winter, it had books on top, entangled in a single sheet. I picked one up and turned it over. Analysis of the non-coding fallacy. I picked up another. The Age of Mutations, and another. Canines and the Stomach. I flipped to the back. The Beauty of the Epithelial Cell. I leafed through the pages of the last, the only recognizable words. DNA, RNA, nucleus. Even then, the context blurred in my vision. Jomi did not go to university. Had she picked up a new hobby? Genetics? I laughed. It was as ridiculous as Sophia's accusation. Each book was stamped property of the Ice Flat University Library, most of them published from the on-site press. Maybe Jomi had brought them home from work. But this clue sucked. Couldn't have been weirder if I'd found a collection of sculptures made from dung sprinkled with glitter. Something else stuck in the folds of the messy sheet. A manila envelope addressed to Jomi with no return address, stamped with the delivery of that morning, only 2 hours prior. Hot damn! I opened it. A single fold of paper fell from the giant envelope. I picked it up, unfolded it, and a big fat chill ran down my spine. It was a Polaroid of a puppy on its back. Its legs malformed and curled into its body. I couldn't tell the sex from the angle, but it was definitely not alive when the photo had been taken. Me and death, we were not strangers. Between my time as a cop and my time on the battlefield, I'd become near numb to the sight of it. But the pup in this photo had similar markings on its body to Jomi. Kid? My voice echoed in the empty room. What in the hell did you get yourself into? I turned the photo over and read 2 letters written in the upper left-hand corner. F.V. My mind synced the clue. F.V. Fairy View. This is it, Jomi. Is this Fairy View? Another half-breed? I read the scribble written in the lower right-hand corner. Dean B.B. Given the book had come from the university press, the letters B.B. had to belong to Dean Blackbrushed of Medical Sciences. As luck would have it, I knew the names of every dean at the university, as my youngest son worked there. I stowed the photo and the smallest book from the bed in my paunch, stood, then swept the room again. The same Jomi cocktail, the sulfuric sweet potato pie scent, had settled in subtle variations. My eyes caught the only personal item stuffed deep inside a bookshelf, a framed photo. When I dug it out and found it was of a tiny Jomi, a younger Benson, a younger me, and my pups, tears and a sort of joy pressed to the surface. It was of the day we returned from Jomi's first hunting trip, which Benson had made me do alone, as Benson was a true city dog and loathed the idea of eating that fresh. Jomi barely reached my shoulders on 2 legs that trip. She'd wanted to hunt the elk, her nose already drawn to the hocks, her little mouth watering. But those elk weighed about 20 times as much as her, and my pups put together. A pack of light 4 against a 600-pound beast? Yeah, right. My claw brushed across the surface of the glass. She couldn't understand, remember, Benson? Try to explain to a hungry little dog that packs don't mean power, that canine don't mean can do, especially when that elk had a thing for puppy antler ornaments. Instead, we'd focused on smaller game, marmots. It was important to me that my pups understood the ways of nature, the way my mother had taught me, that they could survive as their ancestors did. Jomi had been unimpressed until she'd caught a marmot. I'd never seen a little pup smile so much, like my pups when they caught their first fat squirrel. Except for my youngest, Romeo, there'd been a lot of pouting and reading about hunting instead of actual hunting. He was a city dog like Benson. I set the photo back on the shelf, tracing the outline of our pups with my claw one last time, then wrote in my scent ledger, Jomi's home, more sulfuric vegetable funk. The imprints from her puphood are fresh. Non-scent note. Jomi had a new hobby, genetics. Maybe. Well, Deacon's clues are getting stranger and stranger. Join me for Chapter 7 next time. I hope to see you. In the meantime, stay warm.